If you have a best friend and you're out on the town and you happen to get into an altercation and that best friend doesn't have your back and instead says, "Peace out, dude, I'm out." Is that really a best friend? Is it really even a friend at all? But actually is kind of, it's an example of the relationship that some of our worst enemies have, I think, with each other. At the very least, what the Iranian war is doing is showing us what our enemies are capable of, and turns out it might not be much, which is great for us. But before we get into that deep dive, tpt@tpusa.com is the email address. We actually got an email the other day asking how fast I think I can say tpt@tpusa.com. Actually, that might have been it. Whatever the Kalshi markets say around that fast, whatever. Somebody time that and let me know. tpt@tpusa.com is the email address. And remember, if your emails are disgusting, vile, bigoted in all nature, we actually have a better chance of reading it on the show because that's exactly the type of thing that we go for around here, or at least that's what we've been called. So tpt@tpusa.com is that email address. I love to hear your thoughts about all of the things going on, even if we don't talk about it specifically on this show. Like today, we're probably not going to get too much of what's going on at DHS, but if you have opinions, tpt@tpusa.com, especially if you have opinions on how this global network of enemies and alliances is working out that we're about to discuss right now. tpt@tpusa.com. To Iran. Iran's partnership with China and also Russia has been known as an axis of convenience. People who are not friendly to that alliance sometimes call it an axis of evil, which is accurate. Sometimes I even call it an axis of a-holes. But the whole access that they have between Iran, China, and Russia is built on this shared anti-US interest. But it's actually not really as much of an alliance as people might think. The commitments aren't really that committing. The relationship, honestly, on paper, with all of the treaties that have been signed, it looks impressive. But repeatedly, over and over and over again, it shows a lot of hard limits when there's actual real crisis, when the poo hits the fan. And how does that compare to the US and our allies, especially with regards to readiness and capability? Now, before we actually get into all of that, on the topic of readiness and capability, I have to show you a brief example of our actual real-life capability. This is a video a couple days ago of the U.S. sinking an Iranian ship with a torpedo, which is something we haven't done since World War II. And honest to God, this might be the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Cut 11.
An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win.
Yes. Does anybody else have just that, like, internal, hell yeah? Like, as far as capability goes, that video, at the very, very least, at least says, we still got it. But exactly what are we up against on the global stage as it relates to Iran and the axis of a-holes? It's Chinese relationship, it's Russian relationship, all of the three in relationship with each other. What have we learned with the attack on Iran about our biggest enemies? Actually, quite a lot. See, Iran looks east as its strategy leans on long-term deals that, I guess on paper, signal durability. In January of 2025, Iran and Russia signed a 20-year comprehensive strategic partnership treaty. In other words, it's I got your back, bro. But do they really? Putin is obviously in Ukraine and he's trying to deal with a bunch of sanctions, and Iran is, according to this treaty, going to help supply him throughout any of his acts of conquest. But what's interesting is the Russia deal with Iran highlights a lacking mutual defense clause, which limits what Iran can expect realistically from their partner and friend Russia, especially during wartime. Also, regards to China, Iran formalized a 25-year agreement with the Chinese government in 2021. The China agreement is described as involving up to $400 billion in investment, which obviously is concentrated a lot in oil and infrastructure. So Tehran, Moscow, and Beijing have all tried to project this united anti-United States front. Except for in January of this year, the three countries, in January of this year, the three countries signed a trilateral strategic pact where Iran sought advanced weapons systems and systems to modernize and deter their air defenses. Russia is cited as supplying S-400 air defenses and Su-35 fighters to Iran. China is cited as providing HQ-9B missiles and Bedlao-3 navigation technology. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correct at all, but who cares? Now, why would the top leaders be meeting above ground in Iran if they have all of these brand new weapon systems? Because remember, they've signed trilateral agreements. They've signed agreements with Russia and China to basically get all of the weapons they need to self-guard themselves. So there you have it. That's why the Iranian leaders were meeting above ground on February 28th. They thought it was safe. They have all of these defensives. The problem is none of it worked. Over the last week, the Chinese HQ-9B and Russian S-300 Tor systems completely crumbled against U.S. F-35 strikes and long-range anti-ship missiles. 0 intercepts were reported, and the entire system, really, that Iran had purchased from both China and Russia was entirely unstable under the electronic warfare that the United States was putting against them. There were failures in detection, interrogation, and the reliability of these devices were massively exposed. In other words, they didn't work, which is, interestingly enough, the second time this has happened in Iran. Remember, in June, Operation Midnight Hammer took out the Fordo and a bunch of other installations in Iran. And guess what? The systems that they bought from Russia and China didn't work then either. Also, this is the second time this happened this year. Earlier this year, obviously, you remember the raid on Venezuela, where Chinese JW-27A radars and Russian S-300 S-1 systems failed entirely to detect U.S. forces during Maduro's capture. Because remember, as a part of this access of a-holes, Venezuela is also included, but also kind of like a tiny little kid brother. But they had Chinese resources too. They had Chinese military technology and equipment that also didn't work. Experts who have commented about this have cited inactivity, mainly incompetence, and deliberate neglect from the Chinese and the Russians. During the Venezuela raid, U.S. Delta forces faced almost no major resistance from Beijing and from Moscow, these supposed allies. In regards to the race for dominance between the United States and China, it really is showing that, well, China's not doing a great job. Yes, are they a massive economy? Yes. Are they a big country full of, 1.3 billion people? Yeah. And are they willing to do things that the United States won't? Yes. But are all those things even possible? In other words, are they competent? China deals arms to its quote-unquote allies that just don't work in exchange for military influence. Their military sales from 2010 to 2014 equaled $15 billion, but the problem was there's a ton of quality issues. They offer no mutual defense, and their Belt and Road Initiative, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically them giving money for infrastructure projects around the world in trading for influence. It's riddled with debt, and they still have influence control over the infrastructure for the countries that they gave that money to. On the other hand, the United States has treaties and alliances and just generally things that are based on actual value. If the United States says something, more than likely we will follow through on that promise, We have reliable free trade, which has led to innovation in leadership and also military supplies. The United States, sales-wise, does almost 6 times the amount of military sales as China. And also, our stuff has been proven in combat by us. So outside what you think about the war with Iran, what this also is a stress test for our biggest adversaries. And that stress test revealed what the relationship is actually worth between Iran, China, and Russia when shots are actually fired. Despite the rhetoric of no limits, we will defend our friends at any cost, Russia and China have offered zero actual material military aid to Iran, even though they've been hit by the United States of America, China's biggest enemy on the world stage. Instead, China and Russia have offered very stern verbal condemnations of the strike, which is basically like a communist version of what the UN would do. But we're not talking about the UN right now. Their support has been framed around this transactional, self-serving, here's what we're all going to benefit from this, when in reality, it's not actually protective, and it's really not actually productive. Each partner, by the way, has had their own excuse to avoid, a deeper entanglement. Russia obviously is the war going on in Ukraine, and say, well, this would reduce our capacity if we wanted to add another fight, which actually is a real reason. It's self-inflicted, but it is a real reason. China, on the other hand, has portrayed themselves as, hey, look, I know we're buddies, Iran, but we can't really have your back on this one. Now, a lot of us think it's because, well, they can't just tangibly, but they say, well, we're prioritizing economic stability, and we fear an economic fallout if this escalates anymore. Now, supposedly, between the axis of a-holes, military coordination does exist, but it may be more signaling when they don't actually come to anyone's aid during warfighting. Now, on top of that, all of that, there is the component of experience. The last time China was in a real military conflict was in 1979 during the invasion of Vietnam, which many categorize as a disastrous punitive campaign, which honestly exposed China's People's Liberation Army for a bunch of the weaknesses that it has. Which is kind of like what's happening today. Now, since then, they haven't really had any full-scale conflicts. There's been minor skirmishes in India, some even in Russia. But really, it shows limited experience compared to the United States, especially the United States post 9/11, which we've had lots of military operations since then. The inexperience questions China's actual ability in modern warfare, and that matters, right? Like on a practical basis, look no further than Taiwan. The entire world knows China wants Taiwan. We also know that the entire world, the US specifically, is also extremely reliant on Taiwan's semi-chip conductor manufacturing. But the microchips, the question is, are they enough for the United States to fight a war with China over Taiwan? Now, the question is, I actually don't know. I mean, if you're asking it to AOC, the question is, I mean, the official position of the United States is strategic ambiguity. But further than that, I don't know. What do the people of the United States say? Are we willing to go to war with China over Taiwan? But interestingly enough, what the Iranian attack shows is that maybe we don't have to. It is possible that all of the exposure in the weakness of China's military capabilities and technology, evidenced by a ton of military failures in Iran, in Venezuela, might deter them entirely from invading Taiwan in the first place, at least, in the near future. Because obviously that's everybody's concern. If China moves on Taiwan in the next year, what do we do? And that is a very, very pressing question. But what this may have done is shown China that, maybe we're not even ready. And we also don't want to find out if the United States is going to come to the aid of Taiwan. Look, whether or not, you support the war in Iran or the direction, this has given us a ton of great insight into our biggest adversaries, which, will have global implications and will likely set up the United States for massive success on the world stage. Now, last thing, if you want to talk about democracy, despite the fact that libs keep calling President Trump a dictator and a tyrant, he's not. But the countries that we've been talking about, Iran, China, and Russia, do have dictators. It's not a small note, and it's actually very interesting to show that it seems like actual authoritarian dictatorship doesn't exactly work. It can look formidable, it can look big and tough and powerful and strong, but tends to fracture pretty deeply under real pressure, again, evidenced by the last couple months. But democracy and the freedom that has been built in the United States of America, I think clearly has proven to be much more reliable and battle-tested. Overall, like I've said a number of times, you can have your own opinions on Iran. You can have your own opinions on President Trump. Polling shows that most conservatives support President Trump and what he's doing in Iran. But at the very, very least, we can all accept the fact that this is great information, fantastic intel into what China's capabilities are. Unfortunately, whether you'd like to admit it or not, the idea of the Thucydides trap, where the two biggest superpowers almost always go to war with each other, is probably likely at some point in the future. But what it shows now is that China seems to be very far away from that being a realistic scenario, which would be good for the rest of the world. It is great to know all of these things about our biggest adversary, regardless of what you think about the actual war itself. If you have any thoughts on this, tpt@tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send along. I don't know, what do you think we've learned about China or even Russia and their capabilities? Again, like I said, happen to think that it's a good thing that we now know, all of this stuff, it doesn't work. And also, remember, the rest of the world sees that too. All of these other countries that China is trying to get buddy-buddy with are looking at all of the Chinese technology that they sold them as well, going, oh, shoot, maybe we should buy some American tech. And maybe we should be allies with the greatest country in the world instead of one of the most oppressive. So tpt@tpusa.com is that email address. We're going to switch the order of the show around a little bit. Usually we have Tribunal Thursday, Justice Thursday as it's called, later on in the show. But today's I thought was just too delicious, in which the prosecutor of the case is also the defendant. Yeah, you'll see what I mean after the break. tpt@tpusa.com is the email address. We'll be right back after this.
Real America's Voice is growing, and now it's all in one place. Introducing the new and improved RAV app, built for access, community, and choice, not paywalls. Here's the key. RAV is still free to watch. No sign-in, no membership required. Your favorite live streams, breaking coverage, and video on demand are all right there. Free, just like always.
For the War Room Posse, we have to be a force multiplier on this. We have to stick the landing.
In the White House, in the Oval Office, you're crushing it, my friend.
And if you want more, the members section is your backstage pass. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and videos, insider moments from the studio and the field, and early access to new content before it goes public. Members can also unlock special experiences like virtual meet and greets, member-only auctions, and select event access, plus commercial-free viewing of certain shows inside the app. It's not just an app, it's a community. Download the RAV app today. Find it in the App Store and Google Play. Through every storm, every moment of uncertainty,
everybody needs to pray for Charlie Kirk right now.
RAV has stood strong.
We're not going to tolerate this stuff anymore.
Turn that anger into motivation to save this nation.
When we move together, there is power.
The cries of this widow will echo like a battle cry.
This is more than news. It's a movement,
This revolution of people taking their countries back.
a turning point, a chance to be part of something greater than yourself. Scan the QR code and stand with Rav. The story isn't over, and neither is your part in it. Step in, be counted, be heard. Together, we are Rav.
We will achieve American greatness. And we are just getting started.
Hi, I'm Chris from Illinois. We like to watch Real America's Voice in the War Room with Stephen K. Bannon for all the great guts. Everyone from Kerry Lake, the great Frank Gaffney, Trump 24, Retribution.
It's Stacy from Texas. I watch Real America's Voice because I need to learn, and I know I can get the truth through Rav. God bless everyone, and always love the children. Amen.
LGBTQ, which letter are you, Nicole?
I am the A for asexual.
Asexual. Wow, how did that happen?
Who knows? I mean, just like everyone else, I was born that way.
Oh, so like Lady Gaga says, we were born this way. Do you think that's a transphobic statement? Like to people who think they were born in the wrong body?
I don't... That's a good question.
Windows error, but... That's a very good question. I was born this way. Oh, okay. So now we give credit to the way people are born. Good to know, libs. All right. Hey, this is one of my favorite weekly traditions. It is time for me to act as judge, jury, and executioner in what has been known to be called Tribunal Thursday or Justice Thursday.
Thursday Tribunal. Justice Thursday.
It's fantastic. I am such a proponent of me being the judge of all things. Just on a practical, U.S. level, not, a theological level. Just talking about, like, I would love to be the arbiter of all things that go on in the United States of America. I think that intro sets me up to do so. Anyways, on trial today is the governor of California in some statements that he made on one Jaime Kimmel's show. I believe it's also Jimmy Kimmel, but considering everything is supposed to be Spanish now, we will we'll call him Jaime for short. The governor of the poopiest state in the nation appeared on the, for some reason, not canceled talk show to talk about California. Now, he's said some pretty interesting things regarding why people dislike California so much in this clip, but the evidence against what he's saying, also interestingly enough, prepared by himself. This will all make sense in just a second. Let's start it off with this first clip, cut 12. This is Governor Newsom saying why it actually is that people joke about California so much.
Shake your head. Sometimes I hear people talking about California, and I wonder, where are they getting this? Where are they getting this?
Well, Fox derangement. I mean, it's 24/7, the California derangement syndrome. It's through these propaganda networks, focusing on what's wrong every single day. And there's an old adage, you're nothing more than your consistent thoughts. Whatever you focus on, you find more of. And these networks have really honed in on California for one reason. Our success runs completely contra to their entire world view.
There's also another reason, Governor Newsom, why people seem to be fixated on something. It's because it's tragically broken. This is like someone saying, hey, you need to replace your tires on your car. And then the driver of the car is saying, why are you so fixated on the tires of my car? This is nothing more than tire propaganda. And then you, the observer, go, no, all four flat tires are flat. You're going to crash. This is a very dangerous situation for everybody. The reason that we're fixated on this is because it's a rolling train wreck that everybody sees. It's not the idea, it's California derangement syndrome. Well, that comes from somewhere, Gavi. It comes from the fact that, you can't walk down many of the major city streets without having to avoid human poop. Or worse, drug needles. There's a reason for all of that. But what's super interesting, especially in this particular segment with one Jaime Kimmel, Governor Newsom actually made the case against himself by way of a second Governor Newsom. I thought this was fascinating. Of course, I can go into a big, long diatribe about everything that Gavin Newsom said was ridiculous, but why would I if I don't have to? Let's leave it to the man himself. This little sketch happened almost immediately after that interaction with Jimmy Kimmel, in which Jimmy Kimmel brought his own version of Governor Newsom to talk trash about Governor Newsom as he sits right there. I kid you not, if you haven't seen this, this is freaking hilarious. During this entire segment, it's a little bit long, but it's worth every single second. Watch the real Governor Newsom's face and how uncomfortable he is at all of the things that are actually happening in California being thrown right back into his face, disguised as comedy. And actually, it is pretty funny. Anyways, I'll stop talking about it, but making the case for the prosecution in today's Thursday Justice Tribunal is the governor himself. Cut 13.
I am so psyched to be here for a Newsom twosome. I mean, I just came from a ribbon cutting sesh at a shelter for non-binary chihuahuas.
I don't mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but where's the trophy?
All right. Guillermo, ayúdame, por favor. Here. Governor, say hello to my little friend.
All right, what do we got here?
GovGav, for your tireless work in uniting the people of Cali. From the meth dealers of Riverside to the shapely Armenians of the Glendale Galleria. From chakra doulas and yoga thems to farmers market furries and rollerbladers with gluten sensitivities. I, Governor Gavin D. Newsom, in association with the Wounded Wamos Project, and the 3 remaining original members of Incubus, present to you Governor Gavin C. Newsom with the 2026 FIFA, Skydance, Paramount, Netflix, Warner Bros. Big Ass Lipton Cup O' Peace. Plated with platinum that was ethically sourced from all my expired Amex cards. And it holds an entire magnum of this sick-ass Sauv Blanc. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Pour it out.
That is crispy. That is crispy. Do you smell the fruit?
I do.
Jimmy, do you smell the fruit?
I did smell the fruit, yeah.
This is crisp.
Yeah.
This is crisp. Paper straw.
Oh, paper straw. Yeah.
I don't know that I could have prosecuted this case better than that. I mean, let's go through the things that Gavin himself hit Gavin on. One, the meth-addicted people in Riverside, which is a little-known California city, but yeah, there's meth heads all over the place in the nation's poopiest state, which is why it's the nation's poopiest state. Then he talks about all the weirdos, the yoga theys and the farmers market furries, which may sound funny in California, but trust me, to the rest of the country, they're going, yeah, that joke hits a little bit too close to home. Then talks about all of Governor Newsom's possibly corrupt sponsors of this trophy. Then hits Governor Newsom on his wealth, my expired Amex cards, because remember, Governor Newsom ascended to political greatness the correct way, by having a rich family. And just he keeps going. It hits him on the wine stuff. Governor Newsom also allegedly has a problem with alcohol, which, you know, that's unfortunate. Don't want to see that happen to somebody. But he has said, I've had to go to rehab a couple times, even though there's no proof that he actually ever went. I don't know if that was for the alcoholism or for the cheating on his wife. I'm not entirely sure. But he said he's had to go to rehab, but never actually proved that he did go to rehab. And then last but not least, tying it up with, here's a paper straw. Every single component of that was perfect. I could not have prosecuted that case any better. So I will now act as my duty as jury, in which we find, well, what's the charge? Idiocy. The jury finds that the defendant, Governor Gavin Newsom, is guilty of idiocy. And also, as the judge, I will issue the sentence, which I feel like banishment has been the normal thing. But no, I'm actually going to go a little bit less here. But I do think this will hit him hard at home. I sentence Governor Newsom to a lifetime of no longer being able to use hairspray. I think that is just and fair. And I don't think Governor Poopy State, Governor Newsom will be able to tolerate that sort of punishment, which I think is just. So that's it. That is our Thursday tribunal. I have ruled, I have spoken, and that is the outcome of what I believe is a culture crime and prosecuted by the governor himself. Fantastic. That was a fun one. TPT@tpusa.com. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, email us, tpt@tpusa.com. If your email is disgusting, gross, vile, and bigoted, we actually might read it here on the show. Coming up, we're going to get to the points all around the news media world right after the break. Don't go away.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
I don't believe that government has a role whatsoever in doing in getting rid of inequality. See, the point that you have to recognize is that there's no tooth fairy or Santa Claus giving the congressman the money. So the only way the government can give one American citizen $1 is through intimidation, threats, and coercion, confiscate that dollar from some other American. Now, you should not confuse my disagreeing with the redistribution with my saying, well, you shouldn't take care of people who are in need. I believe in helping your fellow man by reaching into your own pockets to help your fellow man is praiseworthy and laudable. Reaching into somebody else's pockets to help your fellow man in need is despicable. And for the Christians among us, when God gave Moses the commandment, thou shalt not steal, he did not mean thou shalt not steal unless you got a majority vote in Congress.
Wow. No further commentary. Holy cow. What was that guy's name? Let me, I've got it right in front of me. Walter Williams is his name. Yeah, it's a perfect example. You don't get to sound or be actually charitable with other people's money. That's not how it works. That's what the government is, right? That's the whole thing is like, well, you're not standing up for healthcare for meth heads. Like, yeah, because I have to pay for it. And I'm happy to do it in a way that's going to be effective and efficient if that's possible, mostly through private charity and donation. But what I know the government will do is, well, nothing. They'll waste it. And you don't get to be generous with my money because you have a majority in Congress. Wow. Freaking awesome. All right. Hey, lots of stuff going on around the world. News of the day. It's time. Let's get to the point.
Get to the point. Get to the point.
All right, first one up, 57%, this is from Breitbart, 57% of Americans want all illegal immigrants, I say immigrants, because migrant is like somebody who moves from like Nevada to Utah. That's a migrant. Somebody who crosses national borders, that's an immigrant. Not sure why Breitbart doesn't use that term, but anyways, 57% of Americans want all illegal immigrants sent home. Now, the reason why I think that's super interesting is because, well, one, that number was a bunch higher during the election. That's when Joe Biden had just a porous border and anybody could come through, and President Trump said, no, get them all out of here. It was something like 85% of Americans said, no, all of them got to go. And whether or not that was practical was kind of irrelevant. It was really a sentiment of where the country was. The majority of the country said, absolutely not. This is horrible. They need to go. Now, what's fascinating about this is that number is effectively held. Like, is it the 80%? No, but that was really just signaling. What it really is a pretty solid majority. A Harvard-Harris poll conducted February 26th, 28th among 2,000 registered voters found that 57% of Americans support sending all illegal immigrants home, which was almost 80% of Republicans and almost 54% of independents, 35% of Democrats, but they're crazy. The poll also showed that 63% of all the respondents, which is both parties, including independents, were in favor of a proposed law barring commercial driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. Now, why that number is so low is beyond me. Who are the 37% of people who think that that's a good idea? But at least it's also still a pretty solid majority. 55% also oppose hiring, and it also oppose hiring an additional 20,000 Border Patrol agents, which is fascinating to me. I don't quite understand how that number gets there. I don't know why there's a pretty overwhelming majority on, hey, we got to get rid of them, but also, but we don't need any more help to do so. Speaking of DHS, it's not in our points today, but some shakeups going on. Here's all I'll say about that. Mark Wayne Mullen, the new proposed Secretary of DHS, I am a big proponent of two named men, being one myself, rising to prominence in modern culture or governance of anyway. So Mark Wayne from a guy named Jobob, best of luck going forward. All right, next point. This is from CNN. The Soulless Hotel conference space, approval for Trump's East Wing ballroom delayed amid scathing public feedback. This is what I think is fascinating to me. I don't know what soulless means. Now, obviously, President Trump is trying to build the big new ballroom, which looks fantastic, and he's like the fourth president in a row to be like, hey, why is there no big event space at the White House? Like Obama wanted to do it, didn't end up doing it. President Trump is now doing it. Now it's just this big, huge, crazy no-no for some reason. But what's fascinating about this to me is the idea of the architecture here. The Planning Commission apparently doesn't like or is delaying, postponing the vote after a bunch of people have strongly opposed the design of it. But of all of the things, I guess oppose. I don't think it makes sense, but oppose it if you don't like President Trump. But to like hit the design, this is a soulless building. If President Trump does anything, it's make things nicer. Like if you've ever been to Mar-a-Lago, there's a lot of like craftsmanship built into the ballroom there. To call it soulless is kind of ironic because the people that like the new kind of, I don't know, brutalist 4 walls and a ceiling architecture, that to me is soulless. President Trump, as a real estate developer, has made lots of objectively beautiful things, and I would imagine that this ballroom would fall into that category. Knocking it on the architecture or the look of it seems ridiculous and odd. But regardless, the National Capital Planning Commission has postponed a vote of approving the proposed project for the East Ballroom with outrage. Honestly, all this will get sorted out. I'm not really too concerned about it. I think President Trump will ultimately, at the end of the day, getting the thing that he and many other presidents before him have wanted. Was the White House, TBT at TPUSA.com if you remember this, was the White House renovation considered racist? Because I think everything has been, and I think somebody said, well, this is racist because it's not, whatever. I don't know. That doesn't matter. Anyways, TPUSA.com if you have any thoughts on this. Next, this is from Newsmax. This actually is really going to be interesting, and this is kind of one of those we're all going to find out together whether or not, 1, this is effective, 2, if it works. which I guess is the same thing. But the White House is mulling ideas to lower gas prices amid the Iran conflict. President Donald Trump's White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles has instructed administration officials to develop proposals aimed at reducing gasoline prices in response to market volatility with the attack against Iran. That actually is going to be something pretty interesting to consider. The White House is considering options like federal gasoline tax holidays, which that doesn't need to be temporary. We can just make that permanent. I wouldn't mind if it were permanent, is all I'm saying. But it is going to be interesting to see how the White House combats this. I maintain, personally, TBT@TPUSA.com if you disagree, that the strikes on Iran were necessary. And at the same time, it appears that there will be some ramifications to it, and how the administration deals with that is going to be interesting. All right, next point here. Moving through these kind of quickly because you got a limited amount of time. Dozens of medical schools are backing, this is from the New York Times. The New York Times, by the way, not a right-wing conservative news outlet. The dozens of medical schools back the Kennedy Plan on Nutrition after pressure. 50 medical schools back the Kennedy Plan on Nutrition under pressure from the White House, or the White House Health, the Health Secretary. More than 50 U.S. schools have committed to revamping their criteria. So the New York Times is obviously couching this in a way that sounds, well, this is so bad. This is pressure from the administration. But I think really deep down inside, what the schools that are going to back this need is cover from the media. I not to be like super conspiratorial, I guarantee you there's back channels going on here with these schools and the New York Times saying, hey, look, some of these ideas are actually pretty good and we would like to adopt them, but we don't want to see this as a win for the Trump White House. So can you say that they were pressuring us? Because we still want to adopt it, but it looks better, to our lib bona fides if they're pressuring us. Can you go ahead and say that? That's what this feels like to me. But overall, this would be fascinating to see if the majority of schools ultimately, obviously more than 50 is a lot, but the majority would be great to get that curriculum across the board and make America healthy and eat real food is what the goal of that is. Moving along in the last couple seconds here of getting to the point, Britney Spears arrested in Southern California on suspicion of a DUI. I wanted to include this in here mostly to set up a bigger conversation that we clearly don't have time to get to, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. TPT@TPUSA.com about the idea of conservatorship. Britney Spears, 44 years old, arrested by California Highway Patrol in Southern California last night around 9:30 p.m. with her vehicle towed, according to Ventura County jail records, believed to be charged with the specifics of the charge were not listed publicly, but I think everybody, including TMZ, is reporting it is a DUI arrest. And the discussion that is really interesting that should be had is this idea of conservatorship. She obviously was released from her conservatorship a while ago. I, as a conservative, am very skeptical about the government issuing conservatorships. But at the same time, you got somebody as volatile as Britney Spears. The case could be made as to why that's necessary. Again, bigger discussion. Don't have time to get into all of it right here, right now. But wanted to bring that on to solicit some thoughts. TPT@TPUSA.com. All right. Got to all of the points. Up next, we're going to talk official business, and we're not going to have time for a ton of it, but if you'd like to send your emails, TPT@TPUSA.com. Coming up next, official business. Don't go away.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted,
Seditious conspiracy.
but behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Welcome to Real America's Voice Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with your Real America's Voice Real Minute. Did you ever wonder what truly happened in the COVID-19 pandemic and whether Anthony Fauci would ever be held accountable? I think we all have. Filmmaker Jenner First has an upcoming documentary that searches.
In this campaign, we have built a coalition that keeps growing. And that includes... Hold on. Getting a FaceTime here.
Hey, Eric, what's up, man? It's Ian.
Hey, Ian. What's up?
Look, we've got
to come together now to make life more affordable in this state. There are too many pressing problems, and we need a new generation of leadership ready to govern on day one. So what do you say we do it together? I want to endorse you for governor of California. Let's get it done.
Ian, I'm so honored. Thank you. Welcome to the team. Let's do this.
I wish all of you could see producer Glenn's face. This is the first time he's seeing that video, and it is objectively the worst campaign video that I think has ever been put out. I mean, Congressman Swalwell, who's running for governor of California, is like notorious for these like horribly cringy videos. He's walking down the hall. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Oh, really? You didn't see the camera crew that's following you around that works for you? Didn't see you there. Oh, let me take this FaceTime call. Hey, it's time to come together. Who does that work for? That is the lamest possible commercial. Let me rephrase this. I am pro him putting out content like that because of how ridiculous and stupid it is. That talk about turning voters away. What a freaking lame video to post. And if that works on people, and if that works on the majority of people, we've lost already. The culture is already gone. And what's the point in fighting anymore? Because that is the lamest possible video I think I've seen in a while. All right, let's see. Where are we at? Oh, official business. It is time for official business. All right, as has been done each and every day, the official capacity of our legislators, elected officials, and bureaucrats means that anything they say is official business. First up in official business, we have Senator Fetterman, who I can't get a read on this guy, man. Like during the campaign when he was running, I think me, you, and everybody freaking hated this dude because he was a communist. And then he gets into office, and I've said this on the show before, he has some sort of mental break after his stroke, goes into a mental hospital, comes out, and starts being like super based. Like, what is going on there? Anyways, here's a very short clip of him in official business talking about agreeing with the things that we talk about. It's cut 6.
The top 55 of them were killed, and I think they just blew up 80 of the randoms mullahs, too. Which, I mean, that was pretty great, actually. So, all right.
Senator, administration officials concluded to...
And how funny is it that Lindsey Graham comes up after him? Like, it blew up a bunch of the mullahs, which is pretty great. Yeah, dude. That's what I get. TPT at TPUSA.com. Some people think that what he's doing is like this big act to get reelected. He doesn't have a reelection campaign for like another 4 years, I think. Or it's not for a while. So, dude, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe he like genuinely is one of those libs that were like, all right, we could tolerate you. You're not woke crazy person, even though that's how you campaigned. It's super interesting. You see so many libs campaigning as like, we're moderate centrists. And then they get into office and they go freaking Looney Tunes, like Spanberg or really anybody who won in the recent elections. Oh, we're a moderate coming together. And as soon as they get into office, all right, woke patrol, let's go. Fetterman is like the opposite of that. He won as a freaking socialist and is now like coming back as like a normal guy. All right, this TBT at TPUSA.com if you disagree. I happen to like Fetterman at the moment. Could go other ways, but TBT at TPUSA.com if you think it's all an act. All right, let's get into some walls scorching in the little time we have. This is Representative Pat Fallon on Tampon Tim Walz, just in the fraud. Watch this.
The facts are your leadership and really your lack of leadership has been responsible for one of the largest ripoffs of the American taxpayer in our history. And you traded, I believe, political expediency, the currency of political expediency, for your integrity. And, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you know this, but it's been widely reported that in 2008, when Barack Obama was choosing his vice presidential candidate, he had three criteria. He wanted to make sure he picked somebody that wasn't as smart as him and had less talent and charisma and couldn't possibly outshine him, so he picked Joe Biden. And then Joe Biden in 2020 used the exact same criteria. He wanted to make sure he picked somebody who wasn't as smart as him, had less talent and charisma, and wouldn't outshine him, and he picked Kamala Harris. And then in 2024, Governor, I think it's very evident why Kamala Harris picked you. The talent pool, Mr. Chairman, the talent pool isn't just shallow, brother. We have hit the shore, and I yield back.
It's hilarious that Tampon Tim laughs at that clearly true statement. That was fantastic. That'll wrap up our this edition of Official Business. We'll be right back after the break.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Welcome to Real America's Voice Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with your Real America's Voice Real Minute. Did you ever wonder what truly happened in the COVID-19 pandemic and whether Anthony Fauci would ever be held accountable? I think we all have. Filmmaker Jenner First has an upcoming documentary that searches
For me, prophetic voices like Jesus have helped me reckon with my own whiteness, my own masculinity, my own certainty, my own ego. It's a never-ending process, and it's a painful process.
We have too much to get to in mailbag. I think I'll just say this. I don't know if that's Jesus that you're hearing. The voices in your head and might be a sign of some severe mental disability. I don't think it's Jesus. All right. Let's see. Mailbag. TPT@tpsa.com if you'd like to be included in mailbag. You know, the emails today were, yesterday, over the last several days, not as, vile and nasty as I'm used to. So step up the game, guys. Just kidding. Dean, on the topic of gas prices, says this. I was wondering why gas prices have jumped up 45 cents since Sunday. I thought we were only supposed to be getting 20% of our oil from Iran. I remember back in the day when there was gas shortages. I'll summarize here. Basically asking what's happening. I thought we were only supposed to be getting, a fifth of our oil from Iran or the Middle East. Yes. So both of those things can be true at the same time. You can have a very limited amount from a specific area, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the country is also participating in that very limited amount. So when a big amount of the commodity that country is selling, like Iran in this instance, goes dark, right? That means all of the other countries that were buying much bigger quantities from them are also deprived of oil, which means all of the other countries outside of Iran who can sell oil, which is us included, are going to send their supplies to those other countries that have been deprived, meaning that basically the supply and demand curve is what is applying here. That's why I think the White House is trying to figure out how to kind of blunt the rise in gas prices, because strictly from a supply and demand point, regardless of how much we're supposed to be getting from Iran, it's going to affect the entire global market. So there's that. Thanks for the email. Pete, on the topic of Jasmine Crockett's accent, says, Jobob, today while Jasmine Crockett was talking about her loss, did you notice the absence of her ghetto speech and attitude? Yes, Pete, that's, I think, because she's having to get a real job now. It's as funny as it is. Remember, conservatives convinced her to run, or tricked her to run for Senate, knowing that she would lose, but also knowing that in order to run for Senate in the state of Texas, she had to relinquish her seat in Congress. So in other words, she's jobless now. And I think the lack of accent that you're pointing to might be because she's going to have to interview for real jobs. And I don't know if I think sounding more professional is going to be beneficial to her job hunt. Let's see. Dang it. I really want to. Maybe we'll get to this tomorrow. Producer Glenn looked up the quote that Jeffrey was looking in at. I want to give this a little bit more time, so we won't get to it today. We'll wrap it up with this. And I'm not trying to be self-aggrandizing here, but Ron says, love Jobob's dark humor. I don't know what you're talking about, Ron. Everything I say is completely 100% serious, not satirical at all. He says he watches every weeknight, loves it, especially when it gets dark. Again, Ron, I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. Nothing I've ever said is a joke. Everything is 100% serious. No sarcasm, no satire here on this show. Thanks for your emails. TPT@tpusa.com. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. God bless America.